This short video is still talking about solvency, and the financial measure will be something called net capital ratio. Now, the net capital ratio is a real simple concept that simply determines whether or not a business has sufficient asset value to cover all of their debts. Now remember, the word solvency means can a business cover all of their debt, short term and long term, with the amount of assets that they have, both current and non-current. So this is a real simple concept. The net capital ratio, abbreviated NCR, is simply total assets divided by total liabilities. And it simply tells you for every $1 in debt, how many dollars worth of assets do you have? So let's illustrate that in our spreadsheet. I'll go back to net capital ratio. I'll type equals, and I'll go find total farm assets and divide that by total farm liabilities. And I will get a number of 2.14, 2.147. What that tells me, for each $1 of overall debt, all debt, this farm business has $2 and almost 15 cents in total assets. Just like in the other ratios or the other financial measures, don't ever forget that that's dependent upon the values that you have placed on those assets. So that net capital ratio could be misleading if you have overvalued or undervalued some of those assets, particularly current assets where you had to estimate a price of crops in storage or market livestock on the farm. Also remember that this is based on the book value of all your non-current assets, because we're still not talking about market value balance sheets. It's very important that you learn these concepts before we actually move to uh, a market value balance sheet. So once again, net capital ratio, it's total assets over total liabilities, and it simply determines whether or not there's a total asset value sufficient to cover all farm debts. So if you completely liquidated the farm one day, this would be as of like the end of the fiscal year, if for some reason you completely liquidated that farm at the values that are in the balance sheet, would there be sufficient funds to pay off all the debts? And of course, if that net capital ratio is greater than 1, it simply means there would be some funds left over. If it's less than 1, then you've got an illiquid business, which means when you liquidate it, there wouldn't be enough funds to pay off all the debt. So you see, solvency is a real critical issue in a business, whereas liquidity is an issue of short-term ability to pay, but not overall wealth. But solvency is different. It's kind of a measure of overall wealth, because if you've got an insolvent business, you simply don't have sufficient asset value to cover your debts.